Hello, this is Suzanne Clegg, and this is the distance healing for this week. So let's the group distance healing. So thank you for being here, and let's do it. All right. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes, do some teaching, and then we'll go into the formal the formal guided visualization and healing. If you know how to cycle, turn your cycle on right now. The healing started, whenever you started, you put your name on the list, or when it got put on the list, or whatever, that deed is when it started. But let's we kind of build to a crescendo until we just stand around looking for a minute and in quiet. But right now we're kind of still building the energy. So let's think about a similar topic, and that will help build the resonance. And we're building resonance not just with the people who are here watching right now, but the people who will watch the video later, okay? And if you're watching the video later, you're resonating with us doing it live, okay? So just pretend like you're connected in thought, maybe not in time, with everybody else who is going to participate in this event. Let's see. So, have you ever felt that you did energy healing and you just didn't feel anything at all? You just felt nothing. Not the good kind of nothing, but not the good kind of non-dualistic, like completely participating with everything so much that there's nothing, like you lose all the boundaries and there's nothing there. Like, not that kind of nothing, but the kind of nothing where you're like, I don't know if that was at all helpful. And so that's what I want to talk about today, which is, why doesn't energy healing always seem to work? If I pick up my mug and I move it over there, then this act of picking up is very reliable, right? Like in the physical, like there's accountability. Like if I leave my mug over there, that means I left it over there. Like the cause and effect are just so clearly integrated. With energy healing, since we're not doing it, we're mostly invoking it and inviting it and cultivating it, but there's some sort of juju that does the actual work. And so we're not in control of that cause and that effect. All we really do is set up the energetic environment and watch the show. All right, so that's one reason why it doesn't seem to have I did the energy work and then nothing happened. Well, you might be using a filter that works on the physical level, and you're using it inappropriately on the imaginal or spiritual levels. It's like different rules apply. They're both dimensions of reality, but it's not the same type of cause and effect. The karma is not up there. It's down here on the physical. All right, so common misunderstandings. I didn't feel anything. Some people say, well, I didn't feel anything, so nothing happened. So depending on what you're doing, like the energy healer doesn't really have to feel anything, but I find that if you can't feel anything, because it's really about it's about your healee's experience, right? Not yours. So if you're a brick, if you can't feel stuff, but you're still cycling and connecting, your ability to perceive what's going on is not necessarily the factor that is important. I do think that factor is important, because if you just can't feel anything happening time after time after time again, it's hard to keep doing it. And often you need to do the energy healing multiple times. So then if I'm working with people like that just their intuition is not well trained, then we go back. Then what we do is instead of focusing on their experience, if they're healing somebody else, we work on what's your healee's experience in doing that. Okay, and it's different if you're the person. I teach you how to feel what's going on in yourself, and I do that right now. I do that on one-on-one hopefully getting some courses out soon. All right. And another thing is, well, I did it and the tumor didn't cool down or nothing happened. But say they got sleepy, or they got full of energy, or maybe their digestion improved, or maybe they forgave their mother, or maybe they, some of these other, like, I call them peripheral healing supportive things. I think those are signs that it's working. And so if you discount them, you quit too soon. An analogy with this is farming or gardening. Like if you plant a seed and a little tiny sprout comes up, and you can't tell if it's a weed or it's that corn you planted, because it just has 2 little leaves on it right now, you're at least excited that something grew right there where you planted it. So sometimes the tiniest things are indications that, the living matrix of recovery is blossoming into action. And the way I help my clients work with this is my Octave Resonance Healing Approach. We look for the life force. We look for little changes in the temperature, little changes in the breathing, changes in, how the body is functioning. Not necessarily did the tumor cool down or did the tumor, go away. Usually it's a process that takes time. And usually if you have a hot cancerous tumor, it'll cool down if I'm working with you, and you'll feel better if I'm working with you. So, and that will give you hope that okay, if that can happen, maybe more can happen. But you don't want to be too relied on any one sign of improvement, because then you start fixating on it, and then you're into ritual, as Bengston says, and you've lost the participation in the dance of healing. Another common misunderstanding is the practitioner wasn't a powerful enough healer. I need to find somebody more powerful, or especially I'm not. Meaning, like a lot of newcomers say, well, I can't do this. Suzanne has to do this. I have to pay Suzanne money because I can't possibly do this. And I can usually get people switching that around in about 1 to 3 sessions till they have the confidence, like, oh, I'm actually doing something. And beginners have tremendous, tremendous luck. All right, so again, it might be that the practitioner is clueless, but it's more likely the patient that needs to do something. Even if the patient is an animal, you can feed it things differently. You can, and there's ways to support the patient or the healee so that they receive fuller. And that's what I do in my one-on-ones. The way I help people through this from, complete lack of confidence to a decent level of confidence, sometimes like a holy cow miraculous kind of confidence, like I'm actually doing this. Every time I treat my cat, the tumor cools down and she's feeling better. That kind of thing. Or the pain goes away when I treat my husband's cancer and I just do it for 10 minutes or sometimes 1 minute and he feels better. So it's not that you believe you're doing something, it's that the person you're doing it on says, oh, thank you, that's very nice, thank you. Yeah. I remember my mother, she died of ALS, and towards the end I flew from New York to Utah to be with her for a whole month. And I did the Bengston Method on her twice a day, and she's like the muggle of the North. If something wasn't in an orange bottle, she didn't want anything to do with it. She loved me, but she didn't understand my world. But it was so helpful for her. She'd say, look, she had a hard time talking with the ALS because her mouth muscles were deteriorating, but she would just really want to do that. She'd say, let's do that thing. Let's do that thing. It makes me feel so much better. So I wasn't believing I was helping her. I was literally getting her off her narcotics and helping her, not need them, which made her so much more comfortable. Her mind was clear and her bowels worked, without all that drug stuff going on. So anyway, the way you get out of believing that you're good or believing that your practitioner is powerful is to observe. And that's what I teach with my Octave Resonance Approach. And that's, again, my Octave Resonance Approach isn't a technique, it's a way to interpret anything that you're doing holistically. All right, so you could do the Octave Resonance Approach to cooking spinach for dinner. It's just an overlay of how to look at something multidimensionally. And again, my courses are coming out soon, I hope. It'll take a couple months, not like days, months, but not years. They're like a decade overdue. Okay, so anyway, back at the ranch. Is belief, a number of questions that people have, like, is like, maybe if I just believed harder, it would work. Like, I'm actually kind of doing this and feeling a little silly about it. And I would say that, yeah, why wouldn't you feel a little silly doing something that's completely new, expecting it to do something dramatic like cure cancer or, bring comfort to somebody. I would say that belief is not required, but awareness is. And the way you say, awareness, I don't know what to be aware of. So the way you're aware is you're curious. And I think we all know how to get curious about what's going on right now. You can just get curious right now while you're listening to this. I wonder what she's going to talk about next. I wonder what's going on in my body. I wonder. Wonder is a step into spiritual perception. Wonder and curiosity. Okay, so the next question is, what are the signs that healing is actually happening? Like, so if I'm going to be aware, what, other than being curious, like, it's like so much to be aware of, I don't know what to pay attention to. And this is exactly right. So if you see that tree trunk behind me, and you go, I see about 5 or 6 tree trunks behind me, and you don't know which one I'm talking about, right? But if I say, what about that one right there? You say, okay, that one. And then I cover it up, and I come back. You could find it again, right? Because you know which one to look for. Well, this is where coaching and how I coach people is like, it's not that you have to be clairvoyant to notice these things. You just have to know what to pay attention to. So when I'm working with people individually, I say things like, oh, did you just feel that? Or I say something just shifted. And I ask them questions, and they go, how did you know? And so I've developed a lot, but I'm trying to teach them how to just what to be aware of. And I can be aware of it because I've done it a million times, but somebody who's new at it can be aware of it if they're shown. And they go, oh, that little thing's important? I go, yes. And that's that's one way to see what the signs are doing. So spiritually, signs of spiritual is that suddenly you're not as depressed, you have hope, which is not really a feeling as much as a spiritual quality of meaning and purpose in your life. But then down on the emotional level, you might start being less depressed. You might start having, you might be more optimistic. You might actually feel really negative emotions that you haven't felt for years because they were buried, and as you heal, you kind of get a whiff of what you were holding on to somatically. So I'm not saying that you'll feel good if you're healing, but you'll feel different, all right? And any feeling is a good time to cycle. And then, what do you do if it's an animal? If you're working on your animal, you're giving them energy healing, how do you tell? And animals are amazingly honest, They leave the healing if they don't want it. They come to it if they do. They perk up, they sleep, it's in some ways it's easier to read animals than to read humans, because humans have an overlay of non-transparency that's not deceptive. It's just how we're wired. We can overlook major parts of ourselves and not notice them, whereas animals don't have those filters. So, and then I'm kind of all over here, but another spiritual thing that I took notes about is one of the first things that can change is your relationship to your condition. And you stop seeing it as this horrible thing that happened to you, and you see it as a path for self-development, and you embrace it, and then your creativity unlocks, and boy, do you then, wow, I love that when that happens, because that means you'll rendezvous with just the right helpers, or be able to just help yourself. All right, so hopefully how does this relate to our group healing that we're doing here? Remember, I usually take us into the healing sanctuary, and then when we come out, I say, notice anything that's changed. So this is my general way of saying, get curious about what's different. All right, that's a very important step. Now, if I was doing you one-on-one, it would be absolutely more nuanced. You know, we would be looking at more specific things. But for a group distance healing, right now, the only way I know how to coach this curiosity is when you get out to really notice, what's different in me? What's different in my imagination of this forest? And then, of course, if you were a Healy, if your name was on the list and you requested healing, you can notice all the things. You know, did I feel better or not? Okay. And then what happens if you do everything right, you feel better, you actually do, but like the cancer marches on. That happens sometimes. All right. And that's where my job comes in, is to try to see if there's something in your emotions, in your spirit, in your life force, or in the physical things that you're doing that would allow you to receive a transformational healing. And sometimes I can do that, and sometimes I can't. But always there's self-development and progress, defined loosely as life having more meaning, more love, more compassion towards yourself, towards your process. There's usually at least a spiritual and psychospiritual healing, and sometimes that ends up being a physical healing. But sometimes the physical healing happens first, and then the spiritual stuff happens. So it's not like it's, you know, if you do it in the right order and you do it properly, it will all work. It's rather unique to each situation. So just be aware, be curious. I wonder how it's showing up this time. Okay, good. All right, I won't go off into my octave resonance. So thank you for listening to that. Hopefully that got you in the mood. And now let's go into the formal distance healing. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Schedule a complimentary get acquainted call with me if you, after you look at my website, spiritgate.com, and say, oh, I need to do this. All right, and then join the Facebook group so that you can participate in these healing sessions. You can always join; it's free. I just do it as a little container so that you have to put a little bit of effort. You can't just like algorithmically click on it and watch it. That might help you, but I find that just a little bit of self agency, saying, no, I want to do this, it's actually a deed that enhances the effectiveness of it. So thank you for being here, for the deed that brought you here to this video.